Good evening. The October 11th, 2021 meeting of the Evanston City Council shall come to order. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Sufferton.
Here.
Councilmember Ravel.
Here.
Councilmember Reed.
Here.
Councilmember Fleming. Councilmember Kelly.
Here. Fleming's here. Sorry.
Here.
Councilmember Braithwaite. Here. Councilmember Nguyen.
Here.
Councilmember Newsma.
Present.
Councilmember Burns.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. All members being present, we have a quorum and are prepared to do our work for the evening. We'll start with the mayor's public announcements. First of all, I want to welcome into a chair where she's physically familiar but now has a different title, newly appointed interim city manager Kelly Gandersky. Thank you very much for stepping into this role, and we're all very much looking forward to working together. I want to make the community aware of a proclamation that I've issued declaring October of 2021 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I'll read just a portion of the proclamation. Whereas October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month and October 13th, 2021 is Metastatic Breast Cancer Awareness Day. And whereas breast cancer is the most common type of cancer among women in the world and second leading cause of cancer death among women in the United States, more than 1 in 8 women and 1 in 833 men in the United States will be diagnosed with breast cancer in their lifetimes. And whereas the national organization Mediviver Research and Support funds critical stage 4 metastatic breast cancer research, educates the public about metastatic breast cancer and lack of funding for stage 4 treatment, and goes on to explain the work that's being done on this issue, and concludes as follows. Now, therefore, I, Daniel Biss, Mayor of the City of Evanston, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Evanston, and encourage all cities to join national effort toward awareness of metastatic breast cancer during October through Mediviver. Obviously, a very serious disease and important effort to continue to raise awareness and support research. 2 additional announcements. First of all, just want to draw folks' attention to the fact that today is National Coming Out Day. And just want to express my thanks to the courageous members of the LGBT community today and those who came before for years and generations, whose willingness to step out and come out, often at significant personal risk to themselves, is in the most literal and direct sense imaginable a lifesaver on a daily basis. So thank you for that. And finally, I want to acknowledge that today is Indigenous Peoples Day, and simply acknowledge that I don't think we do a very good job as a country of educating ourselves about and integrating into our daily life and cultural practice the history of what the colonization of this country did, not only in the way of ethnic cleansing, but also even in the way of near genocide. And I think that the young, I would say the movement whose widespread acceptance is pretty young, to change that is welcome and much needed. And I'm appreciative of the fact that we're now in a stage where at least we can begin to take this small step. And I certainly commit myself to significant self-education as well as repair work going forward. That concludes my announcements, and now we come to the city manager's public announcements.
Good evening, Mayor Biss, Deputy Clerk Gomez, and members of City Council. I just want to say it is an honor and a pleasure to serve in this interim role, and I want to thank you all for your trust and faith in me, and I want to thank the community members of Evanston, and I look forward to doing a great job for this great city, and I also want to thank my staff for hanging in there during this tumultuous time of change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is communications from the City Clerk.
Just want to remind everyone that next week, October 18th, the City Clerk's office will begin offering vital records. That includes death and birth certificates. So please let everyone know, and we will continue to make this announcement for the next few weeks to keep reminding folks about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. This brings us to public comment. Today, we have few enough speakers that everyone will get the full 3 minutes. That's good news, I think, for the speakers. As per usual, we will begin with those who signed up in person, of whom there's only one. So we'll start with Bruce Enenbach. If he comes back, he will certainly be welcome to participate in public comment. But for now, we'll go to the online signups, who will begin with Betsy Wilson, followed by Abigail Stone, and then Judah Bempong. Is Betsy Wilson in the Zoom? Do we know? We'll move on for a moment while we give Betsy some time to address technical issues. Oh, there she is.
Hi, everyone. My apologies. The internet, apparently the weather is causing internet problems. Mayor Biss, if you don't mind passing on me, just while I sort things out so I don't ask you all to wait.
No problem. We'll begin then with Abigail Stone, followed by Judah Bempong, and then Ndona Muboyai. Is Abigail Stone in there? All right, so we'll pass over Abigail as well and move on to Judah Bempong, who will be followed by Ndona Muboyai and then Candy Corbins. Is Judah in there?
Start your video.
What do I say?
I told you to prepare. It's about the ET2
Are you able to hear us, Judah?
Hello?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. Hello, my name is Judah. I'm 16 years old, and I'm 16 years old, and I'm sorry, could you skip on me for a second?
Absolutely, we're happy to come back to you. So we'll begin with Ndona Muboyai, followed by Candy Corbins, and then Meg Hausworth. Ndona, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry, I'm having a bit of an issue with my camera this evening. It's not working properly.
Audio is just fine.
Okay, perfect. So I'm here tonight to basically highlight some of the amazing work that Evanston Cradle to Career has done in our community, not only regarding their youth delegate program, but also their advocates program, and a lot of the community outreach that not only have I been involved in recently, but also the work that they've done in the community, reaching out to the diverse community, whether it's the Latinx, the African American, the immigrant community, or any of the other communities in Evanston to provide support. And I just wanted to state that they're doing amazing work. And if by any chance what I say or any other person states in regards to the work that they've been doing can help them to continue to receive funding, that would be an amazing thing to allow them to continue the work that they're doing in the community.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Candy Corbins, followed by Meg Hausworth, and then Linnea Mayo. Is Candy Corbins there? All right, we'll skip ahead for now then to Meg Hausworth, who will be followed by Linnea Mayo and then Carol Teskey. All right, well, perhaps Meg is not there either. Then we'll go to Linnea Mayo, followed by Carol Teskey, and then Sharia Lois Wedlow. If Linnea is not there for now, then we'll go on with Carol Teskey, who will be followed by Sharia Lois Wedlow, and then Craig Lynch.
Hey, I'm here. I'm Carol Teskey, and I live in the 7th Ward. I'm Executive Director of the Child Care Network of Evanston, and I just want to thank you all for giving us this opportunity to share our thoughts tonight. Our organization, Child Care Network of Evanston, is feels very fortunate to be one of the 40-plus organizations in Evanston who make up Evanston Cradle to Career. I've co-chaired the Strong Start to Kindergarten Committee for a couple of years now, and we have accomplished a great deal. Recent data from both the City of Evanston and the State of Illinois is clear. The vast majority of our kids are entering kindergarten without the adequate skills to succeed. The most recent Illinois Kids Survey, pre-COVID, indicates that only 29% of children statewide are on track. Perhaps more disturbingly, 37% of all students assessed did not demonstrate readiness in a single domain of development. Add to these results the disruptions that the pandemic has caused over the past 18 months, and the crisis of kindergarten readiness is apparent.
I listened to the council meeting. Oh, I was.
That is exactly what our committee is focused on. We have found ways to bring access to quality early education, early childhood education for our hope is to bring it, and we have found ways to bring quality education to children in Evanston that did not have access prior to that. We are striving to support our early childhood educators and build a bridge to District 65's kindergartens so that all children are given what they need to succeed. Through the activities made possible thanks to Evanston Cradle to Career, the messaging around early childhood education has changed in our community, and our families are feeling much more supported. Due to the collaboration created between nonprofits through Cradle to Career, we're able to find what children and families need at a much faster pace. If we have a family in need of housing, all I need to do is contact Betty at Connections for the Homeless or Tracy at Family Promise. If we have a family in need of legal services, all I need to do is call Patrick at the Moran Center, and the list goes on and on. And it is all because of the collective impact that Cradle to Career created. Please help us continue our work by supporting Cradle to Career tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Sharia Lois Wedlow, followed by Craig Lynch, and then Carlos Sutton. Is Ms. Wedlow there?
I'm here.
Beautiful.
Trying to adjust the, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Excellent. Good evening, Mayor Bist, City Clerk, and all alderpersons. My name is Sharia Lois Wedlow. I'm a 5th Ward resident for approximately 79 years. I am here tonight to lend my voice in support of Evanston Cradle to Career. I have been connected to Evanston Cradle to Career ever since its inception as a spectator, an advocate, and follower of the wonderful program that gives the Evanston community a heads up on supporting all families. I have witnessed Evanston Cradle to Career's commitment in partnering with over 40 agencies to ensure that parents, children, and young entrepreneurs, get the best assistance that is available. And that this, that is also in equitable community can offer, such as scholarships for young entrepreneurs who have gone on to create a vibrant business during this, and also during this COVID season. The most vulnerable are vaccinated. Back to School, Back to the Future at Mason Park was a great success, and it was so well attended. I am so sorry that many of you did not get to witness what I saw. There's too much to say in 3 minutes, so I will just ask you to continue to fund Evanston Cradle to Career. Thank you so much. They also support the seniors in Evanston. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Craig Lynch, followed by Carla Sutton, and then Tina Payton. Craig, are you there?
I am here. Thank you.
Great.
And thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm Craig Lynch, Chief Executive Officer for YOU, a 50-year-old youth development organization started and headquartered in Evanston. I'm here to express my support for the Evanston Cradle to Career initiative as well. While I've not been in Evanston long, I've appreciated Cradle's commitment to bring the nonprofit community together and leverage the strengths of our respective agencies to collectively tackle the systemic short and long-term challenges impacting our youth and families. During the short time I've been involved with Cradle as a member of the operations team, I've seen them bring the nonprofit community together and address the challenges brought about and address the disparities exposed by COVID-19. Cradle has distributed around $180,000 in COVID relief funds to those who needed it the most. And they've also partnered with the city to provide support and thought leadership around vaccinations, ARPA funding, and continues to co-lead the COVID Nonprofit Leaders Task Force, among other supports. And as impactful as the funding has been, I've also observed Cradle engaging in the development of community members as community leaders, organizing the successful Advocates for Action groups, as well as engaging with our young people, including the youth-led Behind the Mask Wearing Safety campaign, which happened during the heights of the pandemic. No organization is perfect, and the challenges the collective model is trying to address will not be solved overnight. But in my opinion, long-standing complex problems require bold thinking, creative strategies, and a willingness to serve, which is what I've seen and been a witness to in the Cradle to Career organization and model. Thanks for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Carla Sutton, followed by Tina Payton, and then Mary Rosinski.
Good evening, Mayor Biss, City Manager, and also City Council. I first want to express my concern about the approval of the proposed A8, the new water plan that's billions of dollars that cost to taxpayers here in Evanston. I think this is a little bit premature, and we've all heard about plans to remove lead lines from existing homes and other projects to improve the environment. And I don't understand why this $60 billion project should be imposed upon us now when there should be other avenues, including the recipients who we pump water to should have a bigger share of the cost of this. We've already lost parkland in the water reclamation area that said it was going to be a water park for a pumping station. So we've already also seen the largest part of our bill is sewer. And there was no relief that we can get from that, especially with the new delivery services we get from grouped and advanced disposal. And that is the second thing I want to address. Secondly, that they should have more of a responsibility for replacing the cans that they destroyed rather than passing that on to the independent homeowner. And thirdly, I wish you would address the concern of Lake Sutton behind my home. It's been a collection of water, and I've gone to you 2 or 3 times over 2 or 3 years. You have paved every alley behind Dodge, every alley in the 1600 block on Darrell, alley on 1700 block on Darrell. But when it comes to the 1800 block Darrell on the east side of the street, you say you cannot repair our alley when this was part of the lawsuit, that settlement that you had with advanced disposal because you can't get permission from Commonwealth Edison. Commonwealth Edison is not responsible for paying their share. So why do I have to keep looking at this water backup, this lake in my backyard, and it has been graded 3 times already this year? So that's not the answer. So those are my concerns, and I wish you would address them in a way that would bring some satisfaction to me as a consistent taxpayer at this address for over 70 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Tina Payton, followed by Mary Rosinski, and then Doreen Price.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm talking about A8 as well. And I believe, I agree with Carla Sutton, that we should wait. If the city, if the president is doing an infrastructure bill and that we can get money to fix the water line that's going to cost $41 million, then we should wait. And that should be coming soon. I do not believe, even though in the last APW meeting that Director Stoneback claims that it will not raise the water bill, even though he did state that we will be getting a raise in the water bill soon, so everyone knows this. I believe that we should be waiting to decide on some large sum of money. $41 million is a lot, and people need to be able to speak on this, and we should wait for infrastructure bill. I also would like to say what I've been saying for many, many years. There has been no help for the small minority landlord here in Evanston. This money that's coming down to 75 million or whatever billion is not helping the landlord directly. We need help now. We need help evicting people that have not paid in years. We need help with fixing our property that has been damaged by non-paying tenants, and we need help in general. So if you want to continue to provide affordable housing in this community, it is imperative that we receive ARPA money and invest in the small business landlord, just like you invest in all the other small businesses here in Evanston. Thank you, and Black Lives Matter.
Where is the 75 million coming from?
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Mary Rosinski, followed by Doreen Price, at which point we'll loop back to those who've already been called on, starting with Betsy Wilson.
Thank you. I'm driving, so I don't have audio, video on. But I want to say I agree with what Tina and Carlos just said. It would be better to have a full discussion on the infrastructure bill. Also, with the ARPA money, I don't understand why we're not making sure to allocate some of that money for the businesses in the 5th Ward that need help. And finally, I wanted to comment that I would hope that we will not pass this TIF until we have taken the time to have full disclosure. And if it's a good program, then it can withstand the scrutiny of public questioning and true honesty. But I personally don't think this is the vehicle to accomplish the social things that are stated in it. And there are no plans and there's no commitment, and it just looks like a real land grab. And a lot of money that's going to be dumped into something that our taxpayers, every taxpayer in Evanston, is going to have to now pay the bills that are going to come in from the other taxing bodies. That's going to be removed from the table, that money from the tax parcels in the TIF district are only going to generate funds for the TIF fund. And I think this really deserves public discussion from everyone, because it's very irregular. It's the only TIF we've had which included so much public land and so much commercial land that's already been developed and residential land that has already been sold and developed. And I think this really needs to be looked at in a different vehicle to accomplish what the TIF says it's going to do. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you the best of luck. Bye.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Doreen Price, followed by Betsy Wilson, and then Judah Bempong.
Hi, it's Doreen Price, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak to the council today. I am speaking. I'm looking for my notes here. I signed up to address the land commission that's being formed, and it's for action, which means that I guess it's going to be formed without further public comment, because I don't remember, it went to the rules committees, but I don't remember it having an introduction then followed by action kind of thing. So from that standpoint, I don't know if you're missing other comments that might be more valuable than mine, for sure. In terms of the circuit court, I know there's a tendency for the city now to say, let's go to the circuit court for various things, including the ethics committee. And I still think that that's not really a wise decision, because the people being affected, especially in ethics committee kinds of things, and particularly low-income homeowners, might not be able to afford addressing their grievances or disagreements in that matter. I thought the city council was at least a good way to do it, because we know we have our values of social, economic justice, or environmental justice, economic justice, social justice, equity, and equity. I'd like to make sure that we include moral equity as well as racial equity. Moral equity is really what's germane to looking at the law, and we don't look at the law that when we don't look at that law, we exclude people, because the people who need to be included weren't included in the law to begin with. So moral equity is super important to include, and so the circuit court may not offer that. So given that, I would think with our progressive community and our goals and the community, the council members that we have, that it would be more in their alignment with trying to do the best for the all the residents, including the marginalized and the vulnerable, then this option for the circuit court might not be good for that, or the ethics committee as an option. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker will be Betsy Wilson, followed by Judah Bempong, at which point we'll then go back and check on folks who were called and did not answer.
Good evening. This is Betsy Wilson. If someone would enable my video, I'd be happy to talk to you with my face, but I'm also happy to do it this way. And I thank you all for your patience with me and my technical problems. I'm here today to thank you all for your apology to the Evanston staff who experienced sexual harassment. And I especially very much appreciate your commitment to do better. In response to the apology, one survivor said that, "I wish we didn't have to work as hard as we did for an apology. While this is an emotional burden I'll carry through my life, I just hope that this is something that no person ever has to go through again." Lawrence Hemingway was the director of Parks and Rec at the time the sexual harassment occurred, and at the time this petition was submitted and ignored. He himself has been reprimanded for sexually harassing a subordinate member of his department. Despite this, Hemingway recently sought and received an appointment as the Parks Commissioner in Oakland, Michigan. He withdrew the application. If we are to do better, we must ensure that no person, whether a resident of Evanston, Oakland, or another community, goes through this again. This means that we can't continue our practice of allowing staff who are under investigation to resign with fat payouts and protected by secrecy clauses that will allow them to move into other communities. If the investigation finds that Lawrence Hemingway is at fault, he must be fired. If he resigns, we must not reward his failures with another rich payout, and we must not endanger the young people in another community by promising to keep his misconduct secret. I agree with you all. We must do better. We must protect everyone, not just Evanstonians. And we must stop our practice of payouts and secrecy. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Judah Bempong. Judah, are you still there? Judah, can you hear me? There's some kind of feedback. If everyone could mute themselves besides Judah, please. Great.
Okay. Hello. Good evening.
Go ahead.
What was that?
Judah, it looks like you're muted. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Bless you.
Okay. Can everyone hear me?
We can just barely hear you. I don't know if somebody on our end can address the volume, or if you can. Are you able to hear me, Judah?
Yes.
Okay. So we can just barely hear you. So if there's no way for you on your end to somehow control the volume on your mic, if you could just speak super loudly, I think that might do the trick, but you're very, very faint.
And just if you're using your phone and you have your phone kind of straight up, you may want to lift it up if the microphone's being blocked at the bottom, if you're using an iPhone.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's perfect. Perfect.
Okay. Good evening. I just wanted to speak a little on my experience with Evanston Cradles to Career. Evanston Cradles to Career happened to give a grant to a young senior in high school and allowed him to teach young children like myself how to play golf. And it seems like a small thing, but for me, it gave me so many opportunities. One, I got to play golf when as a black kid, I never thought I would ever get the chance to do that. And like on Friday, I'm going to a state championship course to play golf. And I never thought I would ever be in that position if it wasn't for Evanston Cradles to Career giving him that grant. So I just wanted to say that, and yeah, I hope everyone has a nice day, and yeah.
Well, thank you very much. We hope you have a nice day too, and we also wish you good luck on Friday. And thanks for your patience with our tech issues, but we're glad you stuck around. So I'm now going to call out the names of folks who did not respond when being called on the first time. There's Abigail Stone, Candy.
Hello?
Oh, yep.
This is Abigail Stone. Please forgive me. I'm having technical difficulty.
No problem. Just go ahead.
Those that know me will know this is me. So this is Abigail Stone. I'm actually the mother of Judah Bimpong. And because of Evanston Cradle to Careers, Judah has been playing golf for the past several years, and it has really changed our life. I thought I would never be a golf mom, so I am the proud mother of Judah. Actually, the reason why it has this different name up here is because when I was when I first moved to Evanston, I was in an abusive marriage that ended quickly after I got here. And so since I still have a restraining order on my ex-husband, I used the name Abigail Stone. And a lot of people in the community are aware of that. So I wanted to change it. The computer was working against me. But basically, not long after I was abused and had to flee from my husband, Evanston Cradle to Careers was there. I didn't realize that they would be such a help to me, but they have been part of my life for years now. And it started with some community dinners that they had. And I thought, well, I guess it will be nice, to go and get a free meal and have my children to be occupied. And so that's where it started. And I was able to have a sense of community. And next thing you know, I was plugged in with people that I really didn't get to know before that. So the thing is, there's a difference between just living somewhere, and just doing what you have to do and go back home, and actually being plugged into a community. And so they had all kind of educational opportunities for me. And next, I just kept going. And that really helped me, because it helped me to overcome my circumstances and do more. So now actually I'm on the board of directors at Connections for the Homeless, and I'm on several other boards. I can't tell you all the hats I wear, because that's not why I'm here. But I want you all to know that Evanston Cradle to Careers is really at the root of me becoming a leader in Evanston, a community leader, community educator, because I got to not only know people, be part of a community, but I got to see the advocates in action, do so many events. I was able to go to those events, continue to be an active part of the community. So when I was in a place to give back, I started. And it's like I'm standing on the shoulders of the work that Evanston Cradle to Careers has done. And I have since been awarded a grant. And I see so much empowerment that comes from the work that they do, and equity. Like my son said, he's a young Black male. We have struggled in poverty. We have overcome being in an abusive situation, and they were like family to us. I don't have family here. I'm not a lifelong Evanston resident, but I believe I will serve the rest of my life in Evanston. I want to serve the community. They help to nurture that. They help to nurture me having roots here. I've lived several places, but I didn't have roots. And so I am so thankful to Evanston Cradle to Careers. I see them as a vital part of bringing cohesion, equity, love, a family atmosphere, a welcoming atmosphere to this community. And I've been a part of their community talks. My son and I were able to speak about some of our experiences. So there's just so much empowerment there to members of the community. And I am so thankful for them. I don't even have enough words to say. And also I have been trying to also connect with our Latino neighbors, and always that's important to me. I am a Spanish speaker, not fluently, but
I'm sorry, your time is
that's
up.
important to me. Okay, so they also arranged meetings with members of the Latino community, and so that was also very exciting, and I think very important to this community to not just have diversity, but to have a welcoming spirit, and to welcome all the diverse members of the community. Thank you for your time, and you all have a blessed day.
Thank you very much. Is Candy Corbins or Meg Houseworth or Linnea Mayo in the Zoom?
Hi, I'm here. My name is Meg.
Great, go ahead.
Awesome. Hi, and good evening, City Council. My name is Meg Houseworth, and I'm a junior at ETHS. And I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experience with Cradle to Career. I am a student advocate, and this is my second year working with them. Like Judah said, Cradle to Career is very transformative, and it's really rooted in building community and empowering folks and really uniting people from all walks of life. The first experience with Cradle to Career was last year as a sophomore. I directed a town hall event with some seniors, and we asked candidates who are applying to the district board, kind of their policy initiatives in closing the opportunity gap. And that kind of was my first introduction into civic engagement. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that opportunity because now I am a better community member, I'm more engaged, and I'm working on something that I'm very passionate about. Education, it's incredibly essential. And my first introduction to the opportunity gap was in my middle school. I attended King Lab, which is now King Arts. And, according to 2019, no Black students in the 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade met the college readiness benchmark for MAT tests. And, that is from a plethora of factors. That is because, they're not receiving the same necessarily attention. And, it's really education. It's about giving back to students and that one-on-one personal connection, and kind of noticing that in my own experience as a middle schooler kind of shaped the way that I see it now. So Cradle to Career really gave me those tools to be engaged and kind of reflect on my own experience as a middle schooler and ways that I can address that in the future as a high school student, and also as trying to solve this issue with my previous middle school. So thank you so much and have a good night.
Thank you very much. The last two people who signed up are Candy Corbins and Linnea Mayo. Are either Linnea or Candy in the Zoom? If not, that brings public comment to a close for this evening. This brings us then to our consent agenda. I've already been asked to pull items A2, A6, and P2 off the consent agenda.
A1?
A1 as well.
A13, please.
A13, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
A11.
A11, A13. So what I have so far is A1, A2, A6, A11, A13, and P2.
You also say A13?
Sure did. Nothing else? Okay. In that case, I would entertain a motion to pass the whole consent agenda save for A1, A2, A6, A11, A13, and P2.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Braithwaite moves passage of the consent agenda except for A1, A2, A6, A11, A13. Councilmember Wynn seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Suffredin.
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Wynn.
Aye.
Councilmember Newsma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
On a vote of 9-0, the consent agenda passes. This brings us to item A1. Councilmember Braithwaite, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to move item A1, which is the approval of the City of Evanston payrolls and bills list in the dollar amount, the period of September 13th through September 26th in dollar amount of $2,861,900.10, and also bills list for October 12th, 2021 in the dollar amount of $3,114,805.37. This is for action.
Councilmember Braithwaite moves item A1. Councilmember Wynn seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Suffredin.
Aye.
Councilmember Wynn. Ravel.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen. Aye. Councilmember Nusma.
Abstain.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
On a vote of 8 voting in favor, none voting against, and 1 abstaining, item A1 passes. That brings us to item A2. Councilmember Braithwaite, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, I'd like to move item A2, which is staff's recommending City Council authorize the city manager to execute the annual payment of $50,000 to support the ongoing efforts of Evanston Cradle to Career.
Councilmember Braithwaite moves item A2. Councilmember Nguyen seconds. Is there any discussion? We'll begin with Councilmember Fleming.
Yes, thank you. Apologies to my peers that I'm not there tonight. So I pulled this one off because despite all the public comment, I am not voting to approve this. This has been now, I think, several years that I have not voted to approve this, not because I don't, like the work that they're doing, but I actually was there in the beginning when they started Cradle with the interviews of Sheila and I forgot his name, Bill. But anyhow, I've seen them kind of really move from their mission. So initially it was started as this, Cradle to Career, supposed to kind of do a whole support of our K through, obviously, career students in town. And it started with an educational mission. And, obviously last year was a pandemic, and I've seen them kind of try to morph into doing some real supports that are needed. However, as I've said years prior, I'm just concerned about several things. The mission drift, also the lack of reporting that we get. We usually get a report, Marika, I know you're new. We only get a report once a year when they come in and ask for funding. It's not like any other funding we give. We go through Mental Health Board, and now our new Social Services Commission will give funding, and that has an application process. Organizations are followed. They have a liaison. There's reporting on kind of numbers and activities. And I know Cradle was not started as a traditional nonprofit, but now I'm not sure if this is year 5 or 7 or what it is, but we continue to get funding and don't really have an idea, aside from the one night they come for the money, what they do. And as I've participated in meetings year after year, I just really wish that Cradle could kind of reassess what they're doing, and maybe they need to make a new mission statement. And as a city, I just don't know how we set a precedent continuing to give away $50,000 without really any accountability. It's not what we do for anybody else, business or company or nonprofit. And so I think Cradle should be held to that same standard. Hopefully they can do a better job of reporting back to what they do, and not just kind of come with what I feel like sometimes is just an assumption that we're going to get $50,000, particularly coming after a pandemic when we have so many needs of people in the community. So I will not be voting to support their funding request tonight.
Thank you. The next speaker is Councilmember Suffredin, followed by Reed.
Thanks. Interim City Manager Genders, I guess this question is for you, or if there's staff present. Do we operate under any sort of memorandum of understanding or have any requirements of Cradle to Career to provide any of the reporting that Councilmember Fleming was talking about, or do we just give the $50,000?
Good evening. I don't believe there's a memorandum of understanding unless Director Hemingway, are you on? Yeah, I'm not aware that there's an MOU on this.
Okay. And do we, along those lines, do we track any of the effectiveness of this, or like make sure that we're getting a good return on this investment?
I'm not aware of how it's tracked. That's a question for Director Hemingway. I could get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. I think for a lot of the reasons that were enumerated by Councilmember Fleming, I'm going to vote no as well.
Councilmember Reed.
I will just echo what Councilmember Fleming, the issues that Councilmember Fleming and Suffredin raised, to suggest that in the future, in years coming, that Cradle to Career, that the city enter into some kind of formal agreement with Cradle to Career, and that there are metrics that we can measure in the following years. So I'll just echo that.
Councilmember
Can I ask one more question? Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll come back to you after everyone's gotten a chance to go once, but Councilmember Braithwaite is next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, to members of City Council. Earlier this evening, we had an opportunity to receive a presentation from Cradle to Career in terms of their community partnerships. This has been a citywide effort that started 5 years ago that we understood the reason that the many groups, so you have our non-for-profit leaders, our leaders both in the City of Evanston, District 65202. We also have our faith communities and additional allies, too many to list. We understand that this was a long-term investment to address the systemic issues that we have, and for those, I'm sure the members of our AP and W committee who sat through the presentation, we understand that system change does not happen overnight. But I think what was moving beyond the information that we received was the presentation earlier from our youth and the excitement, the nervousness, and the investment of our town. And so I don't know how you say no to that, to be quite honest, but I do want to acknowledge all of our community leaders and partnerships to their commitment to this effort. To Marikar, who has assumed leadership, and I especially want to give a shout out to Kimberly Holmes for your advocacy citywide. I want to thank you for reaching out to a diverse student body, and your product is good. And I stand in support for everything that you did, and I also wish those leaders who are graduating and all the things that they shared a lot of luck in their future endeavor, and invite them to come back to our community to give back what you have received. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Burns.
So I just wanted to say that I will support this. I appreciate the initiatives and the different events and the community organizing that has been done. And although I'm supporting this tonight, it's important that I know that I do have very deep concerns, because although there has been a lot of important and positive work done by Cradle to Career, my concern is that it has become too similar to other organizations in Evanston. It has kind of morphed into both a foundation, a fundraiser. I think it did some pantry work during the pandemic, which is all great, important, positive work. But when I first heard about Cradle to Career years ago, I don't know when it was, but I was at some of the initial kind of framing meetings, as many of us were. It really talked about, and one of the folks in the video brought this up, reimagining systems through the framework of equity. That's something that one of the speakers in the video mentioned. And I don't want them to lose sight of that, because to me, that's the gap, right? Is we don't really have one central organization in Evanston that is looking at how to effectively tie everything that we do in Evanston together so that we're supporting people, from birth to career in Evanston. We really need that, and it's important work, and I don't want them to lose sight of it. Somebody else mentioned that how they said we've brought quality education to families that didn't have it before. I'm curious how. It's it's great that they're saying this work is being done, but I would have loved to see today in the report how that has been done. One of the more exciting things that I saw in our packet is it talked about early on they developed a baseline data report that created from a wide range of sources used to guide strategic planning and monitor the long-term impact. It would have been great to see it. What was this report, and what happened with it, and what steps have been taken following the report? Are there any new reports or efforts? And I think fundamentally, to really make sure that we're moving in the right direction, we need to know what the goal is. What are you trying to accomplish? And I think all of that should be benchmarks against quality of life outcomes. Fundamentally, what is Cradle Career trying to do? Is it trying to help achieve better college readiness? Is it trying to improve incomes? What is it is trying to make sure that if you're in Evanston and someone of need, that You go through an intake process once. You get a unique identifier number or something, and you only got to go through a referral or an intake process once. But you're looped into this network of different social services and support. What is it? What is Cradle to Career trying to achieve? And I'm going to support it, but again, with the understanding that I really need to see if it's still in its mission to get back to creating those systems, reimagining the systems, as was mentioned before. And it's also important that before funding is allocated for the next year, that we can sit down and really answer some of these questions and get a sense of where we are. But I will support it. Thank you.
Councilmember Kelly.
So I'd like to acknowledge some of the wonderful efforts of the organization. However, I say, in the name of accountability, why not get some clarity on this? And why can't we go ahead and ask for a memorandum of understanding agreement where the goals and the outcomes and the reporting is identified, and then we can really assess it? Could I move to table this and ask that that Cradle to Careers come back with and work out a memorandum of understanding agreement so that we can really assess the goals, assess the reporting mechanisms, expected outcomes? Because I think right now we see wonderful things, we saw a great presentation, but it's not really fair. And I think, Bobby, to your point, let's get that information. I don't see why we shouldn't. So can I move to table this and ask that that staff and Cradle to Careers come back with a memorandum of understanding?
I would second that.
So first of all, just because I've been informed since the question was asked by Councilmember Sufford, and there is in fact no memorandum of understanding, as you implied there. Yeah, of course you could make that motion, but you would have to table to a date certain. So pick a date at which point it would come back on the agenda.
So I think at least a month. So I don't have the calendar in front of me. Let's see.
There's that second Monday in November, I think is the 4th. No, it's the 8th.
Okay.
So November 8th is a meeting, and then November 22nd is the next regular meeting after
how
that.
about November 22nd? I just don't want to put anybody into a situation where they don't have enough time. So November 22nd?
So Councilmember Kelly moves to table item A2 to November 22nd.
Second.
Oh, was that Councilmember Reed?
Yes.
Councilmember Reed seconds. I messed this up last time. This is not a debatable motion, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, then would the clerk please call the roll on the motion to table item A2 until November the 22nd?
Councilmember Suffordin. Councilmember Ravel.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite. Councilmember Wynn.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
No.
Councilmember Burns.
No.
On a vote of 6-3, the motion carries. So hopefully there will be good discussion between the city and Cradle to Career between now and November 22nd, and this item will reappear on the agenda on the November 22nd meeting. That brings us to item A6. Councilmember Braithwaite, would you like to make a motion?
Try that again. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I'd like to move item A6, Resolution 93-R21, authorizing the city manager to sign the First Amendment to the service agreement with Andy Frayne Services, Inc., for the dollar amount not to exceed $300,029.56. This is the crossing guard contract. This is for action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Braithwaite moves item A6. Councilmember Wynn seconds. Is there any discussion? We'll begin with Councilmember Fleming.
Yeah, thank you. I pulled this off just because I had a couple of clarifying questions. Thanks, Ms. Rivera here. So I know we have this contract several years ago. I think we started it. And I know it's always a little bit bumpy at the beginning of the school year, but can you explain to us what the substitution policy is? I have several busy crosswalks that sometimes don't have a crossing guard, and I'm not really always sure who to call it. I know the parking staff kind of fills in, but that's not ideal either. So, Ms. Rivera, can you address that?
Sure. Hi. Good evening, members of the City Council. Mike Rivera, Parking Manager, City of Evanston. The substitution policy, Andy Frame should be covering the substitutes 100%. So they are supposed to have staff that can do that. However, this year has been an interesting year for us due to COVID-19, and that a lot of their staffers are senior citizens that would do this, that are retired. And a lot of those folks have just resigned from their posts just because they are afraid to be exposed to children. So that this year's been a difficult year for them to keep staff employed. So they are doing the best that they can, but they are 100% responsible for that. And in the event that a post goes unmanned, then they communicate to us, and then we try to do the best that we can to alternate that with a parking enforcement officer.
And then how does that work in terms of payment? So if we have a person who's not coming and we're replacing them with the parking staff, how does that work with our contract? Do we get some kind of rebate or credit?
That's not part of the contract because we're not supposed to be covering the corners. They're supposed to be covering the crossings with their staff. So it's just far and few when that does happen, or sometimes it'll happen for a few minutes in the morning, or sometimes if somebody can't get to a post in the morning and we have to provide some redundancy for them, then somebody else will come from Andy Frame and work the post in the afternoons. So.
Okay. So then my question is, can you send maybe a letter to District C5, and maybe you've done this in the past, but to let them know the process if they have a crossing guard that doesn't show up? As I've said, right here on Oakton, sometimes we have cars that don't show up, and then I get a call from a parent or principal, and it's probably better if they call you or Andy Frame or whoever they need to call for that.
Sure, that's fine. I could circulate a letter and get it out to the District 65 administration.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Suffredin. Councilmember Ravel.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen. Aye. Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
On a vote of 9-0, item A6 passes. This brings us to item A11. Councilmember Braithwaite, would you like to make a motion on A11?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, I'd like to move item A11, which is Ordinance 106-0-21, amending Title 10, Section 10, limiting the parking at the lakefront. Staff is recommending the City Council adopt this ordinance for the lakefront parking. This will make the pilot program a year long, which demand-based pricing rate of $3 an hour that will be through the months of April through October 31st, and a commuter rate of 50% that will be 50 cents, that will be November 1st through March 31st. It's for intro.
Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Braithwaite moves item A11. Councilmember Reed seconds. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Reed, followed by Kelly.
So you can allow Councilmember Kelly to go first.
All right, we're going to go Councilmember Kelly, followed by Reed, followed by Ravel.
So I continue to be opposed to the charging for parking on the lakefront. I think this has really had overall a negative impact. I've had a lot of complaints from residents. So I think at this point, especially at this time, we really need to make Evanston a welcoming destination. And I think this is really, this throws a bit of a wrench into that. And our lakefront should be one of those destinations, the culture and lakefront. And so I am opposed to this, but additionally, I know, a good number of folks here support it, but I think we do need to see it. I'm not sure, I don't really see I see how much we generated in revenue, but I don't really see a cost-benefit analysis in terms of, not only for the pilot, but also like a 5-year projection. I really think we should all see that. If we're going to be changing up our lakefront this way, that we should see what we're expecting to gain from this. So I don't know, unless I'm missing it, but I don't see it here. Thank you.
Mr. Rivera, did you want to respond to that?
Sure. I mean, Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry, I had an issue there. We can certainly prepare that cost analysis for 5 years if you would like. I mean, right now, all we have to present is data through current. From the start of the pilot program, which is August 2nd through yesterday, October 10th, we had 15,185 transactions, and we had generated $81,571. So, and of that, 55% of the transactions are at the pay terminals, and 44% are with our Park Evanston mobile app. To date, I think I fielded maybe less than 10 complaints through our 301 system, with questions or concerns about the program, and those complaints probably came in the first 3 weeks of the program as residents didn't know if they had to pay or if they didn't have to pay, and what the rules were that applied. So ever since people have gotten the understanding of how the rules are and the fact that it doesn't adversely affect Evanston residents, they have a paid wheel tax, they will still continue to have access to all the lakefront parking lots and street parking adjacent to the parklands. That'll still continue to be free for all Evanston residents with the Evanston registered vehicle and a current year paid wheel tax. So once people got to know that, all the complaints definitely subsided.
Okay, thank you. And I would just ask, as Councilmember Braithwaite pointed out, this is for introduction. So if this does pass, or if at the end of this discussion, this item is still alive and projected to be on an agenda shortly, it would be great if you could prepare some kind of memo like that before a subsequent hearing, Mr. Rivera. Okay?
I would be happy to do that. I mean, just based on the numbers that we've generated thus far, if we were to implement the program for just 6 months of the year, we would be scheduled to make right between $220,000 and $240,000 of projected revenue for just year 2022 alone.
Thank you.
May I ask Mr. Rivera to include in that how many parking tickets we wrote along the lakefront?
Yes, I can do that as well.
Great. So the next speakers will be council members Reed, Revelle, Wynn, and then Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. I am supportive of this. I think this is a good idea. To actually, this may increase the number of emails I receive over the next few days, but I believe this should be charged to everyone across the board, not just Chicagoans, particularly, or folks who are out of the city, particularly as we had our proposed budget release today, and as we're looking to cover the cost of keeping our commitment that we made last summer to make beaches free. If we were to expand this, I mean, just the revenue that we got when we approved this for a longer duration last go around, it was $50,000 in 1 month in a 30-day period. If we extrapolate that out, as Mr. Rivera did, again, $240,000 just for out-of-town residents. If we were to include in-town residents, we could cover the cost of making the beaches free for all Evanstonians, for all folks. We've made Evanston beaches free for Evanstonians for 3 days a week. We're looking to expand that fully. This is a great way to cover those costs. I think, when you look at the cost of parking, Mr. Rivera, in the last time this was around, did an estimate, or he looked at the average ticket price, the average price for parking, or the average expenditure, I should say, for parking along the lakefront, and came out to just under $6 per trip. And if, again, you do that math out, if a family of 4 wanted to buy beach tokens, they'd actually get far more visits to the beach by either if they just paid for parking, it'd be less of a cost, or they could ride their bikes, take public transit, take other means of to getting down to the beach, and they'd have just as many, if not more, opportunities to enjoy our lakefront. And again, I think that comes out, I did the math a while ago, to 20 some odd times that a family of 4 could attend the beach before the cost even become equal. Am I out of time now? Oh, okay. So I will be supporting this. I would support, and I mean, it's just for introduction, but I would support holding off on this a bit because I think this is an important discussion for our budget next year, particularly as this could be a substantial source of revenue if we do this right. And I second that, all of the information that folks are asking for, I think, should be included. So I'll end my time now.
The next speakers will be Councilmember Ravel, Wynn, Braithwaite, and then Nusma.
Well, first, I was just going to address the idea of charging lakefront goers who are not Evanston, who haven't paid the wheel tax. And my concern there is, the lakefront is a regional asset. It's not just our private Evanston asset. Now, if we're also contemplating charging Evanston residents as well, I mean, the people who live right close to the beach, that'll be fine because they can just walk. But, people who could live a little further away in the western part of our community, they're the ones who are going to have to pay to come park at our lakefront. I think, on both of those counts, I would be against that. And my particular concerns, though, are with the situation at the Lighthouse Beach parking lot because of its potential impact on the Artist Bookhouse. And I know Mr. Rivera worked very collaboratively with Audrey Niffenegger at the Bookhouse to make it easy for her board and workers who are not Evanston residents to be able to have a placard system so that they could, when they came to work at the house and cart out all kinds of moldy stuff, they could park for free and not have to pay the parking fee. But I guess so the situation is okay for right now for Artist Bookhouse, but I'm concerned about long-term. When the Artist Bookhouse is open, they're having classes, they're encouraging not only Evanston residents, but non-residents to come enjoy the classes and the events there. I think it's going to be asking a lot for these people who are going to be paying for the class to also have to pay, let's say, $6 an hour, $6 for a 2-hour class. I think that's going to undercut the effort of the Bookhouse to become a successful enterprise in Evanston. And so I fear if we make this permanent now and come back later when the Bookhouse is ready to open, it will be hard to undo it. We'll have come to rely on every penny from all those parking spaces. So I can't support this.
Councilmember Wynn.
Mr. Rivera has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Go ahead.
Sure. Members of the City Council, I just want to, want to focus that right now our proposal is not to charge Evanston residents. It would be the proposal for expanding the parking throughout the entire year would still remain the same, and Evanston residents would not have to pay with a paid wheel tax. Furthermore, with the Artist Bookhouse, I understand the situation, and we made some special arrangements with the construction team that was there cleaning out the Harley Clark Mansion. But the parking lot, as my understanding, was not part of the lease agreement with the Harley Clark Mansion, and that was supposed to be independent of the Harley Clark Mansion and the Artist Bookhouse. And furthermore, I understand that the Artist Bookhouse is not scheduled to open for 36 to 60 months from today. So that's our position for that.
Councilmember Wynn, followed by Braithwaite, followed by Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also cannot support this. I am philosophically opposed to charging people for coming to enjoy our recreation areas. The lake is not ours. We're the stewards of it. And I think one of the things, the hallmarks of Evanston is, as Councilmember Kelly has said, and as Councilmember Ravel have said, that we are a welcoming community and we welcome people to our lakefront. I think one of the things that, since I've lived here, I've always been surprised at is how difficult it is to ever go to Wilmette's lakefront, because they have a barrier. You can't park anywhere near Wilmette's Lakefront Park unless you're a Wilmette resident. And so that leaves it to just people who can walk there. This is the beginning of a barrier, and I think that that's a bad idea. I think our recreation areas should be open and available and not have any barriers to them. And I also fear the camel's nose under the tent, which is that soon we will have, as Councilmember Reed has said, charging Evanstonians for our recreational areas. So why would it just stop at the lakefront? Why wouldn't we charge people for James Park, Lovelace, the canal parks? Why distinguish between them? So, but that's not how our park system was established. We don't have paid parking in our park system, and that's because I believe the founders of our park system believed that they should be open and available to everyone without charge. Thank you.
Councilmember Braithwaite, followed by Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm having a real difficult time following this conversation for a number of reasons. First of all, I want to thank you, Mr. Rivera, for your creative approach to finding a way to generate income during, halfway of the year, reducing income from our lakefront budget. And so your math that I can't remember exactly from the memo, so I'm just rounding up, was right around $73,000 a month. Yes, am I off?
The math was $73,000 generated through September 26th. However, I pulled through today. Yep. It was $81,571. So that's 69 days that the program has been in operation.
So the total is about $73,000, and or where am I getting that from? Am I making that up?
That was the data that was prepared for the memo for the council packet, and that was the data that was pulled August 2nd through September 26th. It was $73,530 in 55 days. However, as of yesterday, October 10th, between the time of August 2nd and October 10th, yesterday, the income was $81,571.
Thank you. So that's $81K in revenue, and I think as part of the budget memo, I'm hoping that we're paying attention to the following competing factors. I was willing to support it in a pilot stage. I have yet to have a breakdown in terms of how many Evanston residents were able to take advantage of this. And so my concern is basically this. We're reducing the revenue to support the beach operations. We understand over a period of time that the footprint of the beach will decrease, and I'm looking long term. And at the same time, the operational costs we understand is going to increase. So I think our conversations are all over the place, and for someone who's a fiscal conservative, we're worried about raising taxes, yet how the hell someone can discern a car parked in front of the lakefront as someone who's a resident versus a non-resident, I fail to really understand your residents' concerns. So I hope between now and the next meeting that we can get a better sense. I mean, the cars are going to be there regardless during the peak season. So to someone who's a non-resident who would have to pay in the past to get a beach token, I don't see the harm in them paying. And at the same time, when we get to a very competitive budget debate, and those who are going to argue that they don't want to raise taxes, I mean, these are the consequences of those decisions. And if we don't tackle them now, it's going to be a very painful budget season. So, Mr. Rivera, you have your job cut out for you. I am supportive moving this forward for introduction, and we'll just continue this debate during our budget season. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support moving this forward for introduction, and I'm leaning in favor of voting on this when it does come for action. I do like the idea of charging non-Evanston residents to park at the lakefront. I would position this as saying that our parks and our lakefront are free for folks to use. Our beachfront, we want to be free for Evanston residents to use, and we need to pay to maintain that infrastructure. And charging non-Evanston residents for parking near the beach is a way for them to share some of the cost burden that otherwise Evanston taxpayers would be paying out of our pockets. If this moves forward, I would like to see better signage along the lakefront. Mr. Rivera, you and I have talked about this. I know it's on the parking app. It won't let you pay to park there if you are an Evanston resident. But I would like to make that clear on the parking signs along the street. I think Councilmember Revelle brings up a good point about Lighthouse Beach and the Artist Book House. So that's a practical challenge that I think we can work through one way or the other. And as you prepare this package, for the next time we see this when it comes back for action, I would like to see a map of the lakefront and where we are planning to charge for parking and where it might still be free. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. No one who has not yet spoken is requesting to speak, so we'll go to folks requesting to speak a second time, beginning with Councilmember Kelly with 4 minutes left.
Okay, first I just want to respond to the comment about being fiscally conservative. I am about value on our dollar and about ensuring that our budget reflects our priorities and that it serves to improve the quality of living. And I do feel that this addition on our lakefront of having parking detracts from the quality of living. I think we take a hit when we do this and we start charging for our beautiful lakefront. But I also do feel it's really important for all of us, even if I'm opposed, to be able to really be able to assess it, to get that, to get a full accounting of the cost. And I know you mentioned this number of 87,000, but I think there's a cost also, the expenses. We're not seeing the expenses and the costs. So could we get, sort of a 5-year outlay of the cost of increasing parking enforcement and maintenance, and staffing to ensure that our whole lakefront is now being monitored. And I mean, I think we should all want to see that before we make a decision. So I don't know if it'd be appropriate to hold this for that, but I think that is something that
That's why it's for introduction. So we have the time between now.
Okay, well, I'd like to ask if we could get that with the expenses, not just the revenue that's generated, but again, expenses incurred, including the equipment and maintenance and staffing, and for on a 5-year projection.
Go ahead, Mr. Rivera.
Sure, Councilmember Kelly. As we move forward with the budget conversations, I do want to reiterate that the parking fund does a fund transfer to the general fund, to the insurance fund, to the vehicle replacement fund, and to the fleet and facilities vehicle maintenance program. In addition to that, as we're having conversations now about leaf blowers and the possibility of enforcement for leaf blowers, this additional revenue generated along the lakefront could possibly help support that program, as we may have to entertain bringing on more staff to fulfill enforcement not only at the lakefront but as well as leaf blower programs, as we will continue to have those discussions moving forward.
But is the request something that you can also achieve by our meeting in 2 weeks to project out not only the revenues for 5 years, but also the enforcement costs?
Yes, I can have that prepared.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now for a second time with 2 minutes and 5 seconds left is Councilmember Reed.
Thank you. Again, I'm sorry, Mr. Rivera, that I jumped the gun on this one. But certainly I do think this is an important discussion that we have to have, particularly if we are going to keep the commitment that we made earlier this summer about making Evanston beaches free, at least for Evanston residents. Again, and also let's think about it. If we're just going to charge non-residents already pay $46 for a beach token, for a single token. And, you know, so we have to think about the cost that we're already shifting onto them. Again, I've said this before, our property taxes, I don't know where Evanston residents, or we can get the idea that Evanston residents are necessarily paying to have our beaches free only for them. Our property taxes are our property tax revenue is about $30 million a year. That doesn't even cover police and fire. That doesn't even cover the basic services that we provide to the residents. So to think that folks are somehow entitled to some different rate just because we live here is, I think, short-sighted. And I think Councilmember Revelle was exactly right in that our lakefront is a regional treasure. I agree with Councilmember Nguyen that I am philosophically opposed to charging access to our public spaces. Our beach is a public space that we charge access to. Again, a family of four pays over $120 for beach tokens to access the beach. While I believe the beach should be free, and I hope that we can make that. That's, you know, one of God's creations. Parking lots are not one of God's creations, so I don't mind people paying for access to a parking lot. Again, with paying on average a $5 parking cost.
You have 15 seconds,
Thank you.
Councilmember.
With paying a $5 parking cost, an average family of four could get 21 trips to the beach over the summer and park right at the lakefront and pay less than they would if they were to buy beach tokens. And also they'd have the option to ride bikes or take other modes of transportation that would not incur a parking cost. If they're getting a day pass, again, that's $10. So those 21 trips, there are 12 weekends, 12, 13, 14 weekends. You could go to the beach twice a week on average and park there and pay less. Thank you.
Thank you. And with no one else seeking recognition, would the clerk please call the roll on item A11 for introduction?
Councilmember Suffredin.
Aye.
Councilmember Revelle.
No.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
No.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
No.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
On a vote of 6-3, item A11 passes. It'll be back here in 2 weeks. And there'll also be some additional information in the memo that accompanies it as well. That brings us to item A13. Councilmember Braithwaite, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, this is for introduction and action. This is Ordinance 109-0-21, the amendment of the Civil Service Commission rules. Staff recommends that City Council adopt the Ordinance 109-021, amendment to Civil Service Commission rules. The ordinance that will allow the fire department to more expediently hire new firefighters to help staff positions and reduce overtime costs.
So, Councilmember, is that a motion to suspend the rules? So that
Yes.
we can, okay.
That
I
is
will
correct.
second that motion.
So Councilmember Braithwaite moves that we suspend the rules so that we can both introduce and adopt item A13. Councilmember Nusma seconds. Is there any discussion on the motion to suspend the rules? Seeing none.
Yes, I'm sorry. It has to be unanimous, so this item, as well as a number of other items, it seems that they didn't work through referrals committee. So I'm just curious why we're suspending the rules on this for introduction and action now, as opposed to going through the normal process. And I get this is an important issue, right? Every issue is important, but please, yeah, Chief Pollop.
So it seems like everybody wants to speak. Let's start with Chief Pollop.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Deputy Clerk Gomez, City Manager Kandersky, and council members. My name is Paul Pollop. I'm Fire Chief, and the reason it is for intro and action is because we're in a situation where we have members who have been approved by civil service, some which are we have 2 members who have been approved by civil service. 1 member has 0 training, which Evanston is a community that brings any person that wants to be hired with the fire department with training or 0 training, and they become eligible to become eligible on our list. So once a person makes it through the final process and ends up on the eligibility list, they're in a rank order. And from that rank order, the Civil Service Commission will then interview these candidates. So the situation we're in right now, we have one candidate who has zero training, another candidate who is a firefighter paramedic. The candidate that has zero training, I cannot get that candidate into an academy. We only have 3 academies near us. We have Nipston, Glenview, Romeoville Academy, and then down in Champaign, Illinois, we have an academy down there. The soonest I could get this person into an academy would be in January. So if we were to hire that person right now, they would consume a spot that we can't do anything with. They would have to wait till January and then another 3 months until March of 22 before that person would be eligible to work as a firefighter. So the reason for intro and action is to be able to put that person, let's say, on ice, not pass the person up, just put the person on ice, move a little bit deeper into the list, and find somebody who is qualified as a firefighter paramedic, who we can put on the job as long as they're meeting all of our standards and procedures. We'd be able to put them on shift, which will then stop incurring overtime.
And do Evanston residents, you said that there's a list that's generated and there's a ranking, I guess, on that list, and I'm sure are the points that you get for being an Evanston resident, does that determine your place on the list?
So attached, I mean, I wouldn't expect you to read the whole hiring process. It's quite long. But so as you go through, and if you meet all the qualifications to then take the test, once you take the test, you go through an interview panel with their peers, so firefighters, chiefs. You go through an interview process. So the interview process is a 70% weight. The written test is, I think, a 60% weight. Then there's a list that's created. Once that list is created, then these members have the ability to put in their professional achievement points, whether it's military, Evanston resident, Evanston explorer, paramedic, firefighter. They get to put in their professional achievement points. Once they submit their points, then a final eligibility list is created, and then it's in rank order from 1 to, we have 75 on our list currently, and we're at 28. We've gone through 28 already.
Sorry, and last 2 questions. How many vacancies do we have that we're looking to fill?
3.
3?
Well, we've 2 have gone through civil service. 1 has to go to the academy in January. 1 will be starting October 25th, and we're working on another candidate.
And then is this something that could be, from the memo, this is part of the problem, right, is relating to COVID and, am I correct on that?
Yes. So just because of COVID, academies were slowed down. So there's a lot of people trying to get in these academies. The waiting lists are 17 to 20 people deep just to get on a waiting list.
And I'll just to keep it short, because I know there are other folks. The reason I ask that is this something that could be a temporary, as opposed to permanently changing our ordinance, or again, nothing's permanent, but as opposed to changing our ordinance, could we create a resolution, maybe this is for corporation, or do something else to allow for a temporary relaxing of this rule and then return after?
So the ordinance is only including number 14, which is in the event of a global pandemic, world health crisis, or other extraordinary circumstances. So I think that gives you your temporary being right there, if that's what you're looking for. But it's time to get through a situation we're in right now. Does that make sense? Or?
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Braithwaite, did you want to?
Thank you very much for being a leader, and thank you very much for the information that was contained in the memo. This is really easy for me to process and the rest of us, and I'm going to support it.
Thank you.
And thank you, Alderman Suffredin, for making the referral to enter it in as for approval. I mentioned that during Administrative Public Works, and I should have mentioned that a moment ago. Thank you.
Seeing no further requests to speak, would the clerk please call the roll On the motion to suspend the rules to allow us to do introduction and adoption tonight.
Councilmember Suffredin.
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
It's a bit hard for me to process, but aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Hi.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
On a vote of 9-0, the motion carries. So now we may do both introduction and action tonight. So Councilmember Braithwaite, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I'll go ahead and move for action item, intro and action item 109-021, the amendment for the Civil Service Commission.
I will second.
Councilmember Braithwaite moves introduction and action of item A13. Councilmember Nusma seconds. Is there any discussion? We begin with Councilmember Burns.
Yeah, I want to make sure that, and this question is for Corporation Counsel, and if somebody directs me to the page, that'll be helpful too. But where it says that this would only apply in the case of a global pandemic or whatever else, I just want to confirm that, because actually the concern that Councilman Reed addresses, a concern I share, is that right now the current requirements preference Evanston residents, and that's a good thing, and I'm sorry?
Page, yep.
It's page 11. Okay. So as long as that's in place, and if that is not a factor, we go back to what we've been doing, which I think is great, that we have this system that preferences Evanston residents and people who may not have the requisite skills if they applied in a different city. Then I'm fine with it. But I just wanted to verify that. So you said it's page 3.
It's page 337 of the whole packet. And page 11 out of the 20 pages for this item. And it's highlighted in yellow on the bottom of the page.
Yep.
Okay, I'll look over this. That was it.
Councilmember Reed.
And I will just say that I wonder if this language could be tighter during a state of emergency or some official declaration of either the state or the city, because we could be in, a global pandemic for quite a while with things kind of relatively normal.
If I could read one section of this hiring process that's from the Illinois State Municipal Code. This is already in effect right now. So I'm gonna read this, and I'll try to decipher for you if you have any questions. So it's firefighter paramedic appointed upon the request of the fire chief to fill an authorized vacancy. The city manager, at the recommendation of the fire chief, shall issue a conditional offer of probationary employment to the candidate with the highest total score on the final eligibility list, unless the highest ranking candidate fails to meet the minimum standards for the position, or an alternate candidate would better serve the needs of the department. If this exception applies, the city manager may pass over the highest ranking candidate and appoint either 1, any candidate with a ranking in the top 5% of the register eligibles, or 2, candidate among the top five highest ranking candidates in the number of the top 5% is less than 5 people. So what this means is we can already kind of do this, and we can hire people which meet the needs of our community, whether it be job knowledge, whether it be, just going through the list to meet the demographics of the community. So this is already a part of the hiring process. The only downside to this is you can't put anybody on ice. If you pass them, you pass them. What this allows us to do, and this is what's great about this, is we can kind of freeze someone until the next position. I want to continuously bring folks that want to be firefighters to this career. So I don't want to pass someone over just because they didn't have the ability to get training. So we can kind of put them on ice if they meet all the needs, and then get them through when we need to get them through, if that makes sense. So the language is good, and this part that we're trying to introduce here just gives us that ability to put someone on ice a little bit.
Thank you. Last question, just for Councilor Cummings, based on that response, and thank you for that. Is that a portion? Are we able to preempt that rule with our home rule authority? Because it seems as though if we're creating a system where we can put people on ice and there's a state law that says this is how the Civil Service Commission process for firefighters shall work, are we preempting that by creating this holding pattern?
I don't think that the language contained in the updated paragraph 14 actually preempts that particular section. But it does offer the fire department flexibility to be able to go beyond that list that's listed in the state statute in order for them to be able to fill vacancies in an emergency situation. So I don't really think it preempts the state statute. It's just, the state law essentially sets the floor, and we're allowed to go higher. And I think that's what's going on in this particular situation.
Yeah, I heard something different as well. It doesn't seem like it's the floor.
Well, this is important. So what I heard was that there's something, I don't know if this is by state statute, that already allows us to do this, and that the difference is, I think you referred to it as we can put somebody on ice, where if we move forward in a way that maybe the state provides, you'd have to let someone go permanently. You couldn't put them on ice.
So the state statute requires Chief Polyp or the city manager to appoint someone in the top 5%. Correct, Chief?
That's correct.
This rule allows us to go beyond the top 5 or the top 5% because of other eligibility requirements like having already attended the fire academy. So if in this particular situation, we have a situation where we have the top 5 or top 5% of people all need to go to the academy, but like the next person down has already been trained, this Civil Service Commission rule will allow them to recommend them for hire. And I still don't think we'll be violating state law or preempting state law in any way. The state law just says you have to use the top 5%. We're saying, okay, we're going to expand that a little bit because of very specific circumstances.
And to be fair, we're not even, so even if we're going in that 5%, we're still going to come back to that person to be able to send them to the academy. It's not like we're going to discard that person at all. We just want to be able to get a person that can fill the role so we can fill our positions, so we're not incurring overtime and waiting until January for an academy to open up. We don't plan on passing it.
Sorry. And Council Cummings, in your opinion, is what he just said required, right, either by state statute or city code? Because that's what I care about. Because, again, Chief Pollack is great, no issues. I'm looking at the next person in line and making sure that they're required to go back to that person that they put on ice and give them a shot, right? This isn't about Chief.
Traditionally, under state law, once you go past that person, they're no longer on the list. What this allows us to do is to actually still keep them under consideration of the list in order to put them in the academy.
I mean, isn't the issue that because the state law doesn't allow you to go beyond the top 5%, if the only way to go further down the list is to cross people off who are in the top 5, and then you've got a new top 5%. And so there's no such thing as putting them on ice, because by virtue of getting the 6% person in, you had to remove somebody permanently who's above them. What this is saying is we're not going to do that.
It's a better explanation, yes.
But so then the question, I share the curiosity of council members Reed and Burns. Are we able to do that notwithstanding the statute pursuant to our home rule authority, or is there some other reason that we get to do that?
I'm not aware of any preemption by the General Assembly saying that we can't do this under our Civil Service Commission, but I can look into that further. I just know that in doing the research for this particular rule change, this was something that was certainly within reason for us to execute.
Point of, if I can reclaim the whatever minute or so that I had left, my concern with this is, again, I do want to understand if this would count as preempting state law, and then if we do have that authority. In my time as city clerk, I very much enjoyed reading through the history of Evanston, and I remember reading about the 1950s before, and before that, before we had a civil service commission. And again, not about Chief Polyp or anyone else, but understanding why these laws are put in place to ensure that we are hiring the most qualified, people based on a fair metric, and we're not giving favoritism. That's the whole point of civil service. I think that those laws, I would suspect that the General Assembly made that something that you can't preempt, or else, every municipality could just go wild and get rid of the civil service laws and do whatever they wanted when it comes to hiring and patronage hiring. Again, not what I suspect here, but making sure that we're doing things by the book is what I think is important, and particularly ensuring that we're giving Evanston residents maintaining the opportunity for that leg up for them. And given the number that there were 75 or some odd folks on the list, that allows us to go within the current parameter about 3 to 4 people in. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
All right, so no one else is requesting to speak. Would the clerk please call the roll on item A13?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll move to. I think that's an answer that we should have. I think we should know that before we vote to adopt this. Alderman.
Councilmember Reed, can I say one thing real quick? I think what you're voting on here is better, because if I was to pass somebody, let's say they were an Evanston resident, I don't think I can go back for them. This, I'm just freezing their spots so I can get them in an academy later and we could still fill the spots. So according to law and working with human resources, and we had a Civil Service Commission meeting who then also adopted to put this language in. I think it better serves our community, to be fair.
You also, sorry, last question. You couldn't hire this person and hire him and then put him on hold until he finishes?
I can hire him if you want me to hire him, but he's going to sit on light duty for 4 months until he gets to the academy, and then I'll put him through the academy, which is another 3 months. So we'll be hiring back for that person. Because he can't go on a vehicle, he can't operate as a firefighter paramedic, so he would be hired as a light duty person. I could do that, but I don't think that's something that you would want. I could freeze them.
But you couldn't hire him and then have his start date be when he starts the academy or when he finishes the academy.
That would be up to you. That would be up to the city manager and the council.
So
he's approved by civil service.
So there's the possibility to hire this person and then still do everything that you'd like to do as far as, keep him on hold, on ice, until he can start training.
He's approved, given a date of January. So this is already done. So this person is already hired. I just can't fill the spot with him. I'm trying to go deeper to fill the spot, and then when the position comes up, he then starts the academy. I'm trying to get deeper I'm trying to fill our positions with someone who's qualified and still hire this person, is what I'm trying to do.
So,
am I not making this?
I'm sorry. It made perfect sense as well. You pointed out that this is a budget thing, so you're also trying to save money on overtime. So you're clear. I'm clear.
So I think Councilmember Reed still has the floor.
Yeah, I'll pass my time.
All right, go ahead.
I just want to say it's important. I understand most people up here don't see this as a no-brainer, but I'm pretty positive that some folks learned some stuff on the floor today that they didn't know coming into it, whether you're willing to admit that or not. And I think it's important, these intros in action. I've learned some stuff today. I'd like to get more information on it, but now we're intro and outro. We have to be very careful when we do that. That's all I'll say. Because I would have liked to then go back, check out the state statute, right, do some additional research to make sure that I'm representing something that I'm really passionate about, which is making sure that we are preferencing and prioritizing Evanston residents. Y'all hear me talk about this all the time. This isn't coming out of, nowhere. There's a precedent for this. And now with intro and action, I don't have time to do that due diligence. I understand that this gives you some discretion, some leeway to do things. I'm looking for where the requirements are. And but I fully support what you're trying to do currently. It's just I'm trying to see where there's opportunities to require things to happen as opposed to discretion that allows someone of your character to do it. So I'll just leave and end with that. Thank you.
Moving forward, I will try to keep things from not being intro and action. I just think this is one of those things that I'd like to move on just because of the hiring and where we're at with overtime and filling spots.
Yeah, I mean, if I could just comment for a second before going to Councilmember Braithwaite. I think we're all on the same page, all 12 of us, in terms of what we want to accomplish here. I would respectfully suggest that you've made a really strong case for the urgency. And so one option that we might consider is to vote on this so it becomes law tonight, but nonetheless to continue doing the work that we would have done even if it were not up for introduction and action, not only to answer questions that council members have and to address some of the legal questions that have been raised tonight, but also to potentially come back with changes very soon if that's deemed necessary, but also give you the flexibility you need to actually move forward and fill your slots and provide for the public safety of the residents of Evanston as you're committed to doing. So I just wanted to enumerate that option for the body. Councilmember Braithwaite.
No, I'll wait for call of the wards. Thank you.
So I'm seeing no one else requesting to speak. So now would the clerk please call the roll on item 813 for introduction and action?
Councilmember Suffredin.
Aye.
Councilmember Ravel.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
No, only because it's for introduction and action. No.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
On a vote of 8-1, item A13 passes. And I just want to reiterate, I do think the questions that were raised are critical and worth talking about, and I look forward to making sure that we keep on working through this. But thank you again for your work on this and for all you do for our community. This brings us to item P2. Councilmember Nguyen, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Yes, item P2, Ordinance 88021, granting a special use permit for a planned development located at 1012 Chicago Avenue in the C1A Commercial Mixed Use District. This is for action, and I move approval.
Second.
Councilmember Nguyen moves item P2. Councilmember Braithwaite seconds. Is there any discussion? We begin with Councilmember Fleming.
Thank you. I pulled this up because I just wanted to have, and I'm not on P&D, a discussion about the inclusionary housing. I appreciate that. I think they've added a couple more than required and that they only have one studio. We've seen just so many studios. My question was there any conversation about increasing the number of 2 bedrooms and even decreasing the number of 1 bedrooms?
Well, I'll answer that. No, we talked to them about their unit mix, and I was very happy to see that they had a small number of studios and that they had more of a balanced mix. I am really happy with the live-work units that they've proposed in here, and I'm also very happy that they stayed below our zoning height limit, and so we are not having a battle about that.
Ms. Knighton, was there any discussion through DAPR and the other process as we continue to hear about the need for larger units for families?
We generally have a meeting with the developer in advance of DAPR, and this is what the developer was able to provide. Of course, we always want larger units, but they're generally being asked to provide their mix of units based on the overall mix of units. So I'm trying to have a handful of each type of unit. We're glad that there's more 1 bedrooms and not more studios. And we're glad that there are any 2 bedrooms units, because sometimes developers don't even want to provide 2 bedroom units for affordable.
Excuse me, sorry.
Okay, so I would just say I'm also glad for all those things, but I don't think it means we can't ask for more. And I think that, as we continue to hear the need for affordable housing, and obviously we'll go higher, and not that this developer needs to do anything more than other developers. But as a city, I think we need to just push ourselves to not just being glad that people are doing things and actually have requirements regarding the size of units, more so than just the number of units. I sat here for 4 years and we did a lot of studios and efficiencies and 1-bedrooms and so on and so forth. And so we are moving the needle with this one, but at this rate, we're just never gonna, get that far. And so again, I appreciate the developer has done more than we've seen in the past, but I think as a city, we have to just require more. We can't just continue to say we're glad that they're not asking for more. We're glad that they're doing, a few 2-bedrooms. We're glad at these things. We have kind of the power here to just make our standard higher. So hopefully, maybe at the next affordable housing meeting or Ms. Knight, and you can work through this internally. Maybe it's time for us to look at our inclusionary housing ordinance and change the number of units, not just a percentage, but actually the size of units.
The IHO will be back before you for an update, because the plan is to update the IHO inclusionary housing ordinance every few years in order to meet the current market demand and the twists and turns that things go forward as the real estate market changes.
Will that include size of units or just was it a variety of
I think we'll have to see how it evolves. This for the benefit of everyone else, the breakdown of units here, the 116 units, 16 are studios, 80 are 1-bedrooms, 12 are 2-bedrooms, and 8 are live work.
and for the affordable housing, 1 is a studio, 7 are 1-bedrooms, 2 are 2-bedrooms.
Correct.
Are you all set?
I am done, thank you.
Next is Councilmember Nguyen.
Well, I don't want to leave the impression that we did not push this developer to pay attention to what the community is interested in and needs. We have met with this developer since very early in the shutdown, actually, talked quite a bit. They had participated in a community meeting, and we discussed with them the Chicago Avenue Corridor Plan. They pushed the building back off the property line. They adjusted for the fact that they don't have an alley on the back. This backs up on the train tracks. And they were willing to listen to the staff about live-work units, which are something that we know are very desirable in the community. These units are also far from the micro units that we have seen a proliferation of in other parts of the city, and their rents are not what we would call luxury rents. These are all things that were really important when I and the staff talked to these developers as they came in with their proposal. I also made it really clear to them that we were not interested in having a zoning battle about this issue, and they really needed to pay attention to our zoning ordinance and what our staff and what the community was saying to them if they really wanted to have a successful project. So there was quite a bit of discussion that happened. And frankly, because this one does not have are not having a bloodbath at P&D and the city over this, I think is a demonstration of the fact that we finally have some developers who are paying attention. And I have had community support for this throughout this process, which I have to tell you, the Third Ward is on high alert for all new buildings. So I'm very pleased with this, and I hope that they're successful. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anyone else seeking to speak on item P2? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll on item P2, which is on the agenda for action?
Councilmember Sufferton. Aye. Councilmember Ravel.
Aye.
Councilmember Reed.
Aye.
Councilmember Fleming.
Aye.
Councilmember Kelly.
Aye.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Aye.
Councilmember Nguyen.
Aye.
Councilmember Nusma.
Aye.
Councilmember Burns.
Aye.
On a vote of 9 voting in favor and none voting against, item P2 passes. This brings us to call of the wards, starting with Councilmember Sufferton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of your comments earlier and the fact that it is Indigenous Peoples Day, I'd like to ask that we go through a process where we come up with an appropriate way to acknowledge the fact that our city is named after John Evans, who was not a really good dude. So a formal acknowledgement of that, what that process may look like. This was brought to my attention, particularly by one of my constituents who had a suggestion, which may not be practical, of stylizing the way that we write Evanston in lowercase. But there are other ways that we can acknowledge the fact that our city, which we're very proud of, is named after a person who was involved in the massacre of a lot of Native people. I assume Human Services would be the appropriate place once it goes to the referrals committee, but that's something that I would like us to consider, and that is all I have for call the wards.
Councilmember Ravel.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Reed.
I will echo Councilmember Suffredin's request. You know, the founders of our city were mentioned earlier, and I think Councilmember Suffredin is right. We have to reckon with the fact that the founders of this town and the person that the town is named after were racist, sexist, genocidal folks. And so I think we have to have a reckoning with that, both in you know, with the name and continuing to look at our practices that were put in place by some of those folks. So I'll echo that. And then lastly, I have a ward meeting. I announced this at the last meeting, but I'll announce it again. We have an 8th ward meeting, which will be held virtually on the 28th. It'll be held on all of our ward meetings, except for November and December, will be held on the last Thursday of every month at 6 p.m. You can log on. You can find the link to the Zoom either on shortly on Facebook in our 8th ward group, on Nextdoor in our 8th ward message board group, as well as on the city's website. So that ends my report.
Councilmember Fleming.
Yes, I want to send condolences to the family of, oh my gosh, Miss Flynn, Marianne Flynn. She was a longtime resident, Evanston resident, and anyone who was able to know her knew that she was not necessarily at city council, but paid attention to city issues all the time and was great about calling or emailing you, not only to give her opinion, but also to give you some encouragement if you had done something that she appreciated. So her services are Saturday at 7 over at St. Nick's, where she was an avid member, well loved. But our city, you know, like with all loss, our city will not be the same without Ms. Flynn. So just wanted to acknowledge her life and her passing. Also, this Saturday, we will have a ward meeting, 9 to 10 a.m. via Zoom. The newsletter should be coming out in the next day or so. So please plan to join then. Thank you.
Councilmember Kelly.
No report.
Councilmember Braithwaite.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to share with our 2nd Ward residents that this coming Thursday, 7 p.m., I will host a 2nd Ward meeting. This one will be Zoom, and so the information will be online as well. I'll follow up with a newsletter. I just had an additional thing that I wanted to share with members of council, and a few of you already have I've already had a conversation with that. You know, over the weekend, I've experienced firsthand some of the complaints and concerns that have been expressed by some of my peers who serve on council, and particularly who have a footprint in the downtown area that extends to Main Street. A very aggressive panhandler that went beyond asking for money and actually attempted to batter someone for saying no, that he didn't want to give $1. And, you know, in the experience, and as I reflected, it was difficult to ask myself and those around, you know, was this like a one-off experience, or is this what is going on in Evanston on a much larger scale based on some of the concerns? So I've spoke to Councilmember Nusma, Councilmember Nguyen. I don't know, Councilmember Kelly, if these are issues that you've come across, but the areas that I would love to address are just, you know, better accountability with our agencies and organizations that actually interact with the members, with people that are homeless and also suffer from mental issues. In addition to that, provide, you know, real support to our police officers who are called in those situations and and directions, and what can we do with the understanding that we have to keep everyone safe, both, those that find themselves homeless, those that have the mental illness, but as well our residents who just say no and don't provide the dollar. And I think after we come together and address those couple of issues, that we do more to inform our residents on best practices. I think throughout the pandemic that our city of Evanston has become a very welcoming place to many, and it's something that we take a lot of pride in. But somewhere along the line, we have to take responsibility for all of the things that come with that. And I feel like once the cold weather comes around, that may help, but it is something that we'll have to address moving forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Nguyen.
No report.
Councilmember Nusma.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Braithwaite, for highlighting a problem that we have been facing over the last few months, for sure. Incidents such as that have been on the increase over the last couple of years. COVID hasn't made it any better, but I don't think we can blame that kind of thing on COVID. So as the residents who have joined me at my most recent ward meeting, as well as 2 dedicated neighborhood meetings on that topic, I just want to assure the community that the appropriate city officials and the appropriate state officials are all involved in this conversation, and I hope and expect that we will be taking appropriate actions fairly soon to correct these problems going forward, which affects us not just here in Evanston, but around the country. We're not alone in this, but we need to solve it here at a local level. And then my next item, looking ahead to the November calendar, the next ward meeting is Tuesday, November 2nd, 7 o'clock at Robert Crown. Next office hours, Saturday, November 13th, 10 a.m. to noon at Reprise Roasters on Main Street. Thanks.
Councilmember Burns.
Next Fifth Ward meeting is the 28th of this month, 7 p.m. Gibbs Morrison. This month on the 28th, 7 p.m. Gibbs Morrison. Thanks.
Thanks. I'll just end where I began by welcoming Interim City Manager Gandersky to this new role and thanking you for your service to the city, and just pointing out what's obvious to everyone here but needs to be said out loud, that Clerk Mendoza is away on a week-long training, and we thank Deputy Clerk Gomez for ably filling her shoes as well. So thank you very much. And with that, seeing nothing further to come before the City Council, the October 11th, 2021 meeting of the Evanston City Council stands adjourned.